It's a beautiful May day here in Devon, England, and the weather has just been so spectacular lately. I had planned to take you on a little van painting adventure, but because it's a bank holiday weekend, it's a little bit crowded. So I thought we'd do something a little bit different, and I will take you into my secret garden and show you my little summer painting studio, and we could do a little painting there. So let's pack up. Every October, I do my own little version of Inktober, which I call Housetober. And I do little drawings of houses and buildings. And every year I try to choose some type of a theme and do 4 or so of each theme. These are the ones from 2022 that I'm still working my way through painting. And my goal is to at least do one from each category. I have made copies of these that I do plan to put on my website to sell eventually, but I just really want to finish painting at least one of each before I put those up. And I also need to slot some time where I actually can sit down and make the time to mail those. So these were the ones from my Lighthouse category. This is one from my Barns category. This is one from Windmills, and this is one from my little cottages. So I want to paint one from one of these 4 categories. I have rolling homes, haunted houses, which I'm not going to do because it's just the wrong season. And then I have tree houses and gatehouses. And I had just been talking with my daughter, and she really wanted me to paint this for her. But then I realized that I already did one of the tree houses a few months ago for my Patreon, and it's this one. So the only 3 that are incomplete then are the haunted houses, the gatehouses, and the rolling homes. So I have to make a decision which one to paint today. And I think I might go with this little gatehouse. What do you guys think? I think I'll save the rolling home for later. I really love this one too. These are the other ones in this series. I have this one, this one. This one is a drawing tutorial over on Patreon. So I could paint that one, and then people who drew it could then paint it. That's a maybe. And then this one. But my daughter really liked this one. I like the fact that you have all of this forestry and the road in the distance. So anyway, I'll choose one of those. We'll bring a few with us in case I change my mind. And let's pack up a few supplies. It's getting late in the day, so I don't want to overcomplicate things. So I think I'm just going to take my SENDAK up, which is always packed and ready, and maybe add a few more brushes here. I'm going to add these 2 water brushes, which are my 2 favorites for tiny paintings, but I think they'll come in handy. And I do have water and water pots already up there. And then I have this little palette that I'd like to use. It's from Peganol as well. And it just has a nice limited palette. And that's really all I need. So I can put this into one of these pockets. I can take out my pipette for my water brush and my tiny little clipboard, which I won't need. And it fits into that pocket perfectly. And that'll do it. And I'm going to bring my Art Toolkit Folio palette up in case I feel like there are any extra colors that I want to use. And that can just go in the outside pocket. And then these are the 3 packs that I'm going to bring up because I still haven't decided which one I want to paint. So I'll just add those to the clipboard and bring some washi tape and a little cloth for cleaning my brush as well. So I'll just put everything into this little bag and we're ready to go up. My downstairs garden is still a work in progress, but I thought I'd give you a little peek of the greenhouse that my husband and I built last summer and show you some of the things that I'm going to plant. I have some marigolds that I'm going to plant in front of my leaf lettuce, and then I have some strawberries, some tomatoes, and some peas. And then over here I have some more tomatoes and some lavender. I'm not 100% sure where everything's going to go, but I'll be planting over the next week. But for now, everything is happy in here. We bought this little strawberry planter today, and I'm really excited about her. So I've given her a place of honor on top of this little lintel. Anyhow, I'll take you up to the secret garden now. Behind our house, we have this old Victorian stone staircase that leads us all the way up. And if you crane all the way back, you can see the top there and the garden hose that we've run up. And that is not even the top. That is just the halfway point. But let's head there first. These steps are super steep. And so I'm definitely getting a good workout every time I come up here. So if we kept going here and through that gate, it leads us to the secret garden, which is way up high. But this is our little mezzanine garden. And I'll show you what I've been doing here because this is where I've been working. And this is why you haven't seen a video yet this week. Poppy! Hi! Come and join us. Come and join us. Hi! What a pretty girl. How you doing? Yeah, you want to come into the secret garden? Yeah, good girl. I don't have anything in there yet, but I'm planning to get a peach tree because they grow really well in greenhouses here in England. And down here, I used to do vegetables, but I've had trouble the last couple years with having things eat everything I planted by seed. So this year I wanted to turn it into a permanent berry haven. So here we bought a few blueberry bushes and then also an apple tree. And then we just have a little garden shed with a water butt for watering. And then if you look at it from this way, you can see all the way down to the end. I used to have a huge patch of corn that I would grow every year here, but it got eaten the last few times I tried. So I thought berries might be just an easier alternative. I won't have to plant them every year. I can just maintain them. And this beautiful apple tree is already being trained to grow up, and we can put it against this stone wall, which will be really beautiful over time. I have this little watering pot here because it has a little tiny hole in the bottom, so it just makes sure that it's getting the roots really deeply watered. And then every year up here we have a bunch of brambles that grow down and we get lots of blackberries, and those are really lovely. And over here, we've planted a few plum trees. I feel like they definitely don't have enough space between them, but we'll see how it goes. One of them might have to go live in the greenhouse, but plums can grow really nicely down here in Devon, so I'm really hoping that they take to it. If you have any tips for getting plum trees and blueberry bushes and everything started, I would love to hear them. I'm not that experienced of a gardener, especially when it comes to fruit trees and bushes. My lovely lady is starting to blend in with the stone wall. I think we need to put a little plant in her pot this year. So let's take our tea and go up. It's the end of the day, so we're really probably going to miss the sun, but it's still nice to come up here and it's warm enough to do so. These steps, they are so steep that it's better than a gym membership, but not some place that is probably the best place to grow old. Down at the end of this walkway, you can see a glimpse of the tiny house and also some of the repairs that we had done on the walkway this year. And over here, we have a well-conceived orchard that is not doing too well. I think it just really doesn't get enough sun in the area. It's robbed by these trees from the neighbor and also this hazel bush, which never wants to stay short. It's a bit overgrown now because it's May and it's important to keep things nice for the pollinators. But we have little steps that will take us up, and then we have some cherry and apple trees there. It looks like the one apple tree is probably going to do okay. And then if we walk to the end, we have the little tiny house that my husband built with his nephew Don. And these steps again lead to the orchard. We have a little fire pit over here, and we have a glorious apple tree down at the end here, and this one has really taken off, but it gets full sun all day long, so I think that's probably why. We also have these railway ties, so we can go down and get all the way down to the bottom for the overlook, but also so we can get around the tiny house. These railway ties go all the way up and around the back of the tiny house as well. And then we have more railway ties here that lead you up to the fire pit. And I just love the way they did these walkways because we have these areas of little stone mosaics, And then we have the walkway. And every time there's a little turn or a step, there's another little selection of these beautiful stones. And again, these were all salvaged. This is a wild garden up here, so it's not going to be really well manicured, but we really like it. We like the nature and coming up here and feeling like we can just kind of get away from it all for a little while. So let's go inside. We love this little tiny house so much. Like I said, my husband and his nephew built it, and they used mostly reclaimed items. It needs a little bit of a clean out, some dusting and some sweeping, but it has the beautiful views of the hills. And again, it looks back over the garden. So we love it up here. And this is the sweetest little wind chime that my son made when he was 5 years old, but the string that was holding it up broke. So I'll have to reattach it up here. And then I have my French easel and drawing board here with some paper towels in case I want to do any oil painting up here. And then over here is my drawing and watercolor zone. And I honestly don't keep much here in the way of anything. I just basically keep some things in case I'm already up here and get the urge to paint, or I'm with somebody. I have some ancient wet wipes and a little palette for oil painting, and then a couple of primed boards for oil painting as well. And then of course incense, because that's always really creative feeling. And over here in this little cigar box, I just have some sketching pencils and pens and erasers, some brown paper, some watercolor paper, and then just a few notebooks and drawing paper. And then I have 2 of these books, so I thought it would be fun to bring one up here just for inspiration. And also, this is the book that I recommend for beginning artists to get because it's just a nice little introduction to watercolor. It was probably the first watercolor book that I ever used as well. I'm not sure if it's still in print, but it's an oldie but a goodie. And then over here, I have a little water pot all ready to go. Again, another just little notebook and paper for notes. And then I have a set of Prismacolor watercolor pencils and this little art set with just different drawing pencils. I wanted to have a selection of everything in here so that no matter what I was in the mood to do, I could do it up here without having to run up and down. And that way, when I do come up, I can just bring a few things because I know that I have a lot of the basics here already. And then this is just a little wooden pencil box. It's got a little extra watercolor palette in here, but if I'm drawing with pencils, I like it because I can turn it into a little easel of sorts that will hold my pencils. And then I also have a little spray mist bottle for watercolor. I have a few different incense holders. I have this one, and then I also have this little one in the window. And my daughter made me this little heart-shaped bowl, which I really love. And another jar for water. And then I also have these 3 drawers, which hold different items. This one has just some dentist sticks and some tissues. And these are lovely incense. And this one has just some inexpensive watercolor brushes. And this was my very first watercolor set. Sometimes I get emails from people asking what I recommend for beginning artists, and this one served me really well. It's got 2 of each of the primaries, a little brush, and it's got 3 different mixing wells, and then there's some earthy colors on the bottom. And I used to use sap green, you can see here, but if you know anything about me, you know that I really just don't like it. So I learned very quickly that it just makes really artificial looking colors. And then so I don't use the white, and I really don't use Viridian much. So it's a good little set though for beginners, and it's pretty affordable. And then in here I have some oil painting medium and some things for fixing things in the shed. Just a little bit of tools. And I think this just has some needed erasers in it. And that's it. It's everything I need for a simple little art studio. And in fact, a lot of the items in here were the first items that I had. And as I upgraded to professional supplies, I just thought the tiny house was a good place to put my older things so they could still be loved and used and ready to go. I think I probably have enough sunlight to paint here at the desk. Oftentimes I'll just go outside onto the deck and bring some of these chairs outside and paint there. So that is my second option. But let's get started here inside and figure out what we're going to do. I think I'm going to use this brush for everything. It's my Rosemary & Co. travel brush, and I think it's a number 6. Somehow this one didn't get numbered. I have it written down somewhere, but I'm pretty sure it's the number 6, and I really do like this size. And I think because I don't have a lot of time, I'm going to do this one because I think it will be the quickest of all of them. I love having this selection of ink drawings at my disposal for painting because it takes a lot of the hard work out of the whole process. What I do is I take all of my drawings to my printer and have him print them on watercolor paper so I can make multiple copies of each drawing. If you haven't tried something like this, I think you might like it as well. It's a really good way to play around with different color mixing, and it takes a lot of the anxiety out of the whole painting process as well. For the sky, I'm starting with a mixture of French ultramarine and transparent red oxide, leaning more heavily towards French ultramarine. The sky in this composition is a little bit more on the cloudy side, so I don't want the blue to be too vibrant. And then I'm looking at other areas of the composition that have that same color in it. And there are a lot of reddish gray colors in the roof tiles, so I'm just adding a little bit more of the transparent red oxide to the mix and then putting in my first coat of that. So I'm then taking a little bit of watered down New Gamboge, which is my warm yellow, and I'm painting that into all of the areas that have that same color. And the colors that I'm using for this composition are the Daniel Smith Essentials set. So I have the Hensa Yellow Light and New Gamboge for my yellows. And then for my reds, I have the Pyrrole Scarlet and the Quinacridone Rose. Although I only used a dash of the Pyrrole Scarlet and I didn't use any of the Quinacridone Rose for this painting. And then for the blues, I have French Ultramarine and Phthalo Blue. And I've also added in the transparent red oxide, which is my favorite earthy red color to use. I find that it has more of a vibrancy and a freshness than burnt sienna. And you can see that here where I'm adding just a dash of that transparent red oxide into that New Gamboge mix, and it just brightens it up a little bit more, makes it a little bit more gold looking. I made a really huge error on this painting, which you can see here, which is that I forgot to prepare the paper. And with these prints, after I get them printed, it is really important to prepare the paper. So because I forgot to do that, this first coat of paint is actually serving as my paper preparation. So there is a little bit of bubbling on the surface, and I just am trying to be patient with that and lifting up any paint that is still settled on the surface. After cleaning the mixing well, I mixed up a fresh green color by using the Hansa Yellow Light and French Ultramarine with just a little dash of the New Gamboge. And then I dotted that into the grassy areas where I saw that fresh, bright color. Now I will go over this later and add pops of some of the other greens that I see, but this is a beautiful first base coat. Nature doesn't exist in large, solid blocks of color. There are so many different nuances in every single thing you look at. So one of the most fun parts about being an artist is being a little bit of a detective and looking for all of those little nuances and popping them in where you see them. And after I'd covered everything, I made another mix that was a little bit more of a mid-tone green by using those same 3 pigments. And I dropped little bits of that into the grassy area to give the illusion of the depth that you see in a large expanse of grass. And I paid particular attention into putting it along the edges of pathways and the base of the building as well. And then into that mix, I added a little bit of phthalo blue with a little bit more of the transparent red oxide to create a cooler blue for some of the vines and distant trees. And again, my focus here was on really scrutinizing my photo reference and seeing where I saw those colors. I didn't just place them willy-nilly. It's very important with landscapes to really focus on where the light is hitting and where the shadows are and to get those colors correct. My photo reference and the original drawing for this painting are up on my Patreon from my 2023 Housetober selection. But I'll also pop in a quick image of the photo reference here just so that you can see it. I always start a painting by putting down the first coat of the lightest colors that I see. Once I'd placed all of the greens where I wanted them to, I cleaned out my mixing well because I didn't want any spillage of the green or the yellow getting into my shadow mix. And I created that shadow mix with a combination of French ultramarine and transparent red oxide to create a cooler black for my shadowed areas. And then I looked for those areas where I saw the deepest, darkest shadows in the painting, and I popped those in. So underneath the arch of the gatehouse, at the tops of some of the windows where there was a lot of shading, and then along the base of some of the foliage. Any place that I saw a cooler, dark shadow, I popped this color in. To lead the eye back into the trees beyond the gatehouse, I needed to mix something that was very pale, because as things recede into the distance, they do get more pale. So I mixed up a little bit of the French ultramarine and the Hansa yellow light and dotted that into those tree areas. And for the base, added a bit more of the French ultramarine to that mix. The edges of the roof on these buildings had a very light silvery type of a color, and so I mixed that with just a little bit of the French ultramarine watered down quite heavily because that silvery metallic color was reflecting the sky. And then using my original mix of the Hansa yellow light and French ultramarine with a dash of the new gamboge, I added a darker green and dotted that along the grassy areas. For the shadows of those distant trees, I created a mix with phthalo blue and transparent red oxide for the very base of the trees where the shadows were deeper and cooler. And I also saw that color a little bit at the base of the trees and some of the edging of the grass along the roadway. And then I watered that mixture down for the tree trunks and some of the areas of those distant trees. I didn't show this in the painting process, but at the end when everything was dry, I did add a little touch of some of the transparent red oxide into some of those really heavy dark mixtures, because whenever you see a shadow, there is a little bit of spillage of light and color. And so to have it be a solid dark mass was just a bit too heavy and unrealistic. And after those first two coats were finished and some of the greenery was drying, I wanted to add some of the pops of darker, brighter colors. So I mixed a little bit of the Pyrrole Scarlet with my transparent red oxide and added little dashes of that to the brickwork. And then I looked for other areas in the composition where I saw those same golden, reddish colors. So I added some water to that mix and spread the love, which is where I found other areas in the composition where I saw orangey, reddish colors, and I dropped it in. So in the lawn and along the driveway and even into some of the trees. This part of the composition is always a lot of fun for me, just doing all the little finessing, because it adds a lot of depth and reality to a painting. I was very happy that I had packed my Art Toolkit Folio palette because I really wanted to add a little bit of transparent yellow oxide to my new gamboge to brighten up some of the stonework. And then I added a little bit of the transparent red oxide to that mix and dropped that into some of the tiles of the roof. And that was pretty much it for the color. I did find that I had lost a few of the sharp lines, so I took a very dark brown marker and tightened up a few of the areas. I'm running out of light and I'm running out of battery, so this is where I'm at so far. I think I might add a few more touches inside, but it is getting chilly and it's time to go in and have dinner. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me here up in my secret garden. I hope you're having a lovely day with many happy painting adventures of your own.